Hello, once again, and welcome back to Front Porch Sports, episode 11. I am your host, Steven, and we are coming to you live from the actual front porch. It warmed up enough here in Tennessee. The actual podcast from the porch. So if you hear the occasional car or possible train, that's not a sound effect. That is really us out on the porch. With me today, I also have our host, J-Man, Jairus.
Happy New Year's. Hello, guys, ladies.
And as always, we have our producer and co-host, Philip.
Hey, everybody.
Excellent. And we do have a special guest that will be joining us later in the podcast. But we'll get to that as we go on. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the bowl games that already happened, being that today is New Year's Eve. And we'll talk a little bit about the NFL Sunday, what happened. We'll give you a breakdown of who's playing who's out, and we'll kind of go from there. Any announcements today, or before we get into the NCAA? No?
I don't think so.
Excellent. So, starting off, the games this week from the NCAA, the Vero Alamo Bowl, Washington State, and Mike Leach gets to 11-2 as they take down Iowa State, 28-26.
Not a huge surprise.
No, I'm pretty sure. I think most of us picked that one.
Was a decent game, and I don't know if either team looked totally inspired.
Yeah.
I mean, it turned out to be a good game, but I don't know that either team showed up with their complete A game, but it was entertaining. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 20, Syracuse, also goes into the game as they get to 10 wins and dominate a Greerless West Virginia team, 34-18 in the Camping World Bowl.
Hey, when you take one of the best quarterbacks in the nation off the field, it's not a surprise that your team loses. So I'm not really surprised that Syracuse pulled out the win in this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, West Virginia did start Allison, which is a transfer from Miami, is having quarterback troubles as it is. So that kind of tells you where he probably stood in as far as quarterbacks go. But, yeah, I don't think anybody was surprised that Syracuse was able to defeat the Greerless West Virginia team. Auburn was able to dominate Purdue in the Music City Bowl 63-14. I'm not thinking anybody is surprised that Auburn won the game. I think probably the score would probably surprise some folks.
I believe last time we talked about this, and I'm not, patting myself on the back or anything, but I figured if Auburn showed up and actually wanted to be there, I didn't see any way Purdue blew their load way earlier in the season when they busted Ohio State. And like I said, as long as Auburn, as long as they were actually involved and present at that game, I figured they would blow them out. I didn't know it was that big, but I figured a blowout was coming.
All right, moving on from that game, number 10, Florida easily handled Michigan in 41-15 in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
I was kind of surprised. I didn't think Florida was as good as Michigan at all. I thought Michigan was going to steamroll them, but I was obviously wrong.
I'm still of the mindset that Harbaugh's got one foot out the door already, and I think that the way Michigan showed up that day is kind of bowing in my favor a little bit. I really think Harbaugh's on his way out somewhere in the NFL. I think it's going to happen.
Well, and Florida's always had a very good defense, even when they were down those last couple of years. They've always played very well defensively. Their offense always struggled. Putting up 41 points against a Michigan team shows that they may be a little bit, maybe turn that around a little bit. All right, so Virginia's able to shut down South Carolina 28-0 in the Belk Bowl.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Virginia won. I'm definitely surprised they won by that big, but wow, South Carolina just shit the bed totally, and Virginia did not. They showed up and, took her over.
Don't think Muschamp is a good coach. He's too wishy-washy a lot of times.
Well, Virginia is a well-coached team too, and they always seem to overperform sometimes as well. I don't know if South Carolina just didn't want to be at that bowl. Maybe could be part of it. One of those deals where they're like, "Yeah, we're here, whoop-de-doo." Kind of. I don't know.
Well, the outcome certainly points to that being the case.
All right, so talk a little bit about the games that really did matter a whole lot. Clemson dominated number 3 Notre Dame 30-3 in the Cotton Bowl to move on to the national championship game.
It's a butt whooping. What that was.
It was, and I think all of us agreed that Notre Dame had to be there because of undefeated season. I wish it didn't have to be that way, and this is probably going to end up being the final push to where they expand the playoffs. But I wasn't impressed with Notre Dame, even when they had the undefeated season. They do play a decent schedule, but this year the guys on that schedule were not the normal teams you see year in, year out. And Dabo, he's a good game planner, and he's got some really good kids on that squad, and so I'm not surprised that it ended up that way.
I mean, Clemson arguably has the best defensive line in the nation, along with Alabama. Their O-line on both sides, Alabama and Clemson, are both probably the top 2 in the league, so I don't think there's any surprise that Clemson ended up in the championship game. I think it was pretty much called by pretty much every talking head at the beginning of the season. Also, speaking of Alabama, scored 21 points in the first quarter, and then shut down a late rally by Oklahoma to advance to the finals, 45-34.
I think they were up 28-0 at one point.
They were.
Right. They scored 21 in the first quarter alone.
They scored 21 quick in the first quarter. It was like within 8-9 minutes or something.
Yeah, I think there's only one person that's ever come back on saving like that, and that was Cam Newton, 21-0 down. And you got that big a lead, you're not gonna come back against Bama. I don't care how good your offense is.
And in the second half, I think Bama was basically just toying with them. If they wanted to accelerate again on them, I feel like they could have. I believe they were just they knew they had it well under control, and and I'm not even down on Oklahoma. They're not that bad of a team. They got a really good quarterback, a fast offense, a quick hitting offense, but they play in a league that is not the SEC, so I'm not surprised at all. Their defense couldn't do anything against Alabama. Their offense made that little run, but there again, I think that says more about what Alabama had going on than what Oklahoma was actually doing.
Yeah, I mean that first half, if you look at it, I mean every time that Oklahoma dropped back to pass, there was 3 or 4 guys in the backfield just chasing around the quarterback, and it's hard to get comfortable, set your feet, make any throws. So yeah, it was a pretty rough game for Oklahoma and the Oklahoma fans, but I think everybody pretty much at the beginning of the year figured it was going to be Clemson, Alabama in the finals, and that's how it kind of ended up. All right, so moving on, let's talk a little bit about the NFL, our recap. Feed, you got our stats from last week?
I do. We have Jarris at 9-7. Steve finished at 11-5, and I once again had the lead at 12-4. And for the year,
dookie-doo.
For the year, Jarris is sitting at 34-30. Steve's at 38-26, and I'm
over 500 boys.
And I'm at 44-20. So,
yeah.
That's why your name's not capitalized on that sheet.
Yeah, understandable.
It's a conspiracy. All right, so let's go over some of the games that they're playing for pride. We'll kind of touch on them just a little bit. The Dolphins in their season with the 3rd straight loss. They fought a Buffalo 42-17.
Yeah,
they had to go up north in the cold, and not a big surprise.
No, that's not a surprise, and I think it's going to be a big rebuilding time for the Dolphins since they fired Gase. I'd say Tannehill's on his way out, and I don't think it's going to be very good for the Dolphins for the next couple of years.
I think pretty much all the NFL teams in Florida is going to have a different look next year. If I was a guessing man.
But I am impressed with the Bills. Well, Josh Allen, I think he's going to be a player in the next couple of years if he can learn how to
throw the ball.
He throws it. He's got a strong arm. He just got to learn how not to throw it to the other guy.
That's a problem usually. All right, moving on from that, Mike Evans was able to set the single-season receiving record for the Buccaneers at 1,437 yards, but they still fall to the Falcons, 34-32.
Evans is a beast. Falcons' offense is really good, but it's been up and down, roller coaster so much this year, and Falcons' defense is complete trash, so not a big surprise.
Good for Mike Evans, but nobody really cared about that game. It was two teams that didn't have nothing to play for.
Yeah, it's two teams that really underachieved this year. I know that at least Atlanta had some aspirations to make the playoffs this year, and Tampa was hoping they had a better season, which also fired their head coach as well. But, yeah, it was a pretty disappointing game that when they made this schedule, they figured this one would probably have some impact, but apparently not. Lions shut out the Packers to end their disappointing season with a 31-0 victory over Green Bay.
Yeah, it looks like Aaron Rodgers went down early. That's probably a big part of it, but it's definitely a very underachieving Packers team this year. Lions, shouldn't have won 31-0, but still, the Packers, they're in a big old mess. I hope they get a new coach in there to get this straightened out, because Aaron Rodgers is too good of a player to his last couple years to go out like this.
And a game that didn't mean much, even though one of the teams is in the playoffs. The Panthers were able to defeat the Saints in the battle of third-string quarterbacks, 33-14.
Carolina and the Saints, I was still surprised. Bridgewater's no world beater by any means, but Carolina's been on such a freaking horrible slide here lately. I really thought the Saints would still get them, but Carolina does have some weapons, and they definitely showed up and showed out yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. Bridgewater didn't play very well. And he was kind of putting his resume out there for next year, and he didn't really do a whole lot. There's not a lot of free agent quarterbacks coming out next year, so he could have probably cashed in somewhere. But it definitely hurts his stock going into next year. The Cowboys are resting most of their starters, but they do start Prescott as they defeat the Giants 36-35.
Still no huge surprise. Giants have, they hit a little hot streak at the end of the season, but they're still not a very good team. Cowboys had a little bit to play for, so.
I tell you, I'm impressed about Barkley. I think he broke the record for running back catches in a season.
Yeah, for rookies.
Rookies with 90, I think, past Reggie Bush. So they got a good base to build around there in New York. Whether they keep Eli or not, it's a different story. But Saquon and Odell's a good base, and even the Ingram tight end kid they got, that's a good offensive base to build around. So they should be looking up in the next couple of years as long as they draft well. Maybe
get somebody with some arm strength in there.
I don't think Eli played too bad the last 8 weeks or so. Now, the first couple of weeks, he was pretty horrible.
But did he play all that well, though, either?
No, but I mean, you going to want to make a run or you want to start all over? That's the question.
Well, I think bringing in somebody like somebody from Baltimore maybe could turn that franchise around pretty quick.
Yeah, Flacco could, probably.
All right, so moving on. Some of the games that did matter yesterday that counted. The Vikings needed a victory to ensure they would make the wild card, but they do fall to the Bears 24-10, which opened the door for the defending champion Eagles to slip in to take that final playoff spot.
Yeah, Bears defense is just too good, and the Vikings, I thought they were going to right the ship since they fired their offensive coordinator, but it seems like the offense for the Vikings just can't get, and the defense has just been very disappointing all year. I don't know what's going on with the defense.
It blows my mind because, of course, Cousins is taking the brunt of it, but they had 27 yards in the first half. 27 yards. And, yes, a lot of that goes on Cousins. But you mean to tell me with those two backs you can't get 50 rushing yards in the first half? The whole damn thing's in disarray. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Bears defense is really good, so I understand not having an awesome, showing, but 27 yards total offense in the first half, that's crap. So The Vikings, I don't know what's going on. They have 2 bad receivers, 2 awesome running backs. What I thought was a decent quarterback. I don't think he's, the best in the league at all. But man, and their defense sucks. It doesn't make any sense.
Cousins had more than he's ever had at Minnesota. He was at the Redskins. I think his best receiver was Jordan Reed and Pierre Garçon.
Yeah.
So when they stuck him with Thielen and Diggs and Rudolph, I was like, it's about to go off. And now he's underachieved horrible this year.
I don't know. There's something going on.
I watched that game, and there's a lot of fighting on the sidelines during that game. A lot of arguing, a lot of route pointing and everything. So, well, our special guest just walked out onto the porch. I'd like to introduce you guys to former offensive lineman for the Georgia Bulldogs, Bronson Sweat.
How we doing, fellas?
Sitting on the porch, drinking beer, watching football. So
There's nothing better than that.
yeah.
That I can guarantee.
So, no, we thought we'd bring Bronson in with us. He's out here visiting for the new year. And we're going to get some of his take and some of his being he's played obviously a higher level than all of us has. He can get some maybe some inside take on some of these games that we may have missed, and you can kind of go from there. So, carrying on, Nick Foles continues his magic to lead the Eagles into the final wild card spot, shutting down the Redskins 24-0. Anybody?
Who wants to make fun of Jarris first? Because the Redskins suck.
Well, we was going to let you start on it because it's your team.
I mean, we've talked about it so many times. Smith went down, 3 linemen went down. It all went downhill. And I said it earlier in some of our episodes. I didn't understand why the Eagles weren't already making a charge. Wentz goes down. Here comes Foles. What a story it would be. What if they do it again this year? I mean, back-to-back when Philly hadn't got a title, and then all of a sudden, somehow out of this crap show this season,
I would say that'd be about the end of Wentz in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
I think you'd have to.
That's going to be my question. Does Wentz start, or does you think Foles is the new guy there?
They've already given Foles a start already for this week, but I mean, I don't think it ends Wentz. I mean, I just think it just goes to. I think they just started to click at the right time. I think the running game started happening. I think Foles gives a different blend than Wentz does. I mean, I think their offensive line started actually playing well. I think you look prior games that their offensive line was pretty pitiful. I mean, they couldn't block a soul really. I mean, they couldn't get anything running game going, and that equals bad play for a team that thrives on the RPO game. I mean, they really thrive on it. Like that's what makes them tick. And their defense is built on that speed. So if they're on the field more than they're off, they're going to get beat and throttled like that. They're just kind of their own. I mean, it's pretty scary for I think a lot of teams in the NFL.
So if you're the GM, which one do you keep?
I'm keeping both.
if you can.
I think you easily can. I mean, obviously, Foles is willing to stay last year in the same situation. I mean, Wentz is just honestly, I think probably to me, and there again, this is just me, and I'm a lowly whatever I am. I think Wentz came back too soon. I think, you know what I mean? I think he tried to push it a little too hard too soon, and it's a big injury you come back from, and to try to, and it was late in the season last year. It takes a lot of guys. I mean, look at Luck, and of course, that wasn't the same exact injury, but you look at a lot of these guys now are taking their time to come back. And I know Wentz was trying to come back and prove himself as a player, but you know, sometimes you just got to sit back and the coach. That goes on the coach. I mean,
right.
You got to say, son, let's sit down and let's reevaluate. Because was an MVP candidate last year. You know, you can't forget that. So.
Right. Oh yeah, no, he was definitely up there at the talk of the MVP. Absolutely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Saints. Wrapped up the number 5 seed with a last-minute field goal over the Cardinals.
The Seahawks.
Seahawks, sorry.
Yeah, you went Saints.
I apologize.
Surprised it was that close, but
I was surprised they took a last-minute field goal, to be honest with you, especially Seattle at home against the Cardinals.
Yeah, it was weird. You know, and I had hopped on Seattle's bandwagon big time as they made their last charge at the end of the season here. But, man, the Cardinals, gosh, were they taking for granted that they were just going to blow them out, or I don't know. And it was literally a last-second field goal. I still have some pretty good faith in Seattle. Their defense is stout. Carroll's going to have those boys going. I love the Carson kid at running back, and Russell Wilson's one of the best in the league. Lockett's more than good enough to tote his weight at receiver. So I still say look out for him. But, man, that game yesterday was quite confusing.
I mean, I think they're typically a different team at home, and they really struggled. And they're going to be on the road pretty much all the playoffs. So I think it's going to be a long road for Seattle this year.
Yeah, Seattle. Of course, there it goes. It could be the fact they expect to win against a team. I mean, the Cardinals have struggled, and they got a coach. Everyone knows the coach has been on the way out. They've been talking about being on the way out. I think maybe
he was fired today too.
Yeah, I mean, you see what I'm saying? I mean,
After 1 year.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to heck, they didn't show up to play, and they got caught with a buzzsaw. So
There you go.
yeah, my bad.
You're good.
They're straightening me up.
The LA Rams defeated the 49ers to wrap up the number 2 seed in the NFC 48-32.
And they got it done.
Machines.
Barely got it done, but they got it done.
And Gurley's on the sidelines, so.
Like C.J. Anderson ran for 132 yards. I don't think that was a problem. It's like the defense has not been there the last couple weeks, apparently.
Their run defense has been poor. I think that's something that, and not taking nothing away. They have that's been poor. They're going to have to fix it. I mean, there's no way around it. That's going to hurt them in the wrong. I mean, McVay's obviously a genius. I mean, I actually had the privilege of actually listening to him in a clinic, and it's pretty phenomenal how smart he is and how things work for him. But defensively, they're going to have to fix a lot of things. I think they're susceptible. When you're susceptible to the run, you're going to get your eyeballs beat out in a playoff situation.
And they shouldn't be with that stacked D line they got. There's no
Well,
reason.
They're all pass rushers.
Look at any matchup they can get. The Bears run heavy. The Saints, although Breeze is awesome and he can sling it, don't get me wrong, but he also has 2 bad to the bone running backs. We just talked about Seattle, run heavy. They're going to run into some problems if they don't figure out how to stop some running teams in the NFC, no matter who they play.
And you're right. They've not started anyone yet. To me, running the football. I don't know what the stats look like, but I mean honestly, and Sue and they're both pass rushers. They're built to stop the pass. They haven't. And I think it's something McVay's going to really have to take a look at, because if they can't get through this year with what they have offensively, I mean, honestly, we know what they have offensively. It's pretty dynamic.
Yeah, and Sue's known to play about a quarter of the plays, even when he's on the field. So he takes plays off a lot, and that really does hurt.
I think you should make him into a second, third down guy, bring a big run stopper in, a big kid. You draft that.
A big body kid.
Yeah, to fix it, because Sue's not going to play the run. He just doesn't. He's horrible at it. I mean, to be honest, looking from an offensive lineman standpoint, I mean, if I'm running the football, I want to run it to Sue. They don't run it to don't. I mean, and the other kids obviously he's up for MVP. So I mean,
he's a stud.
We know he plays both sides. I mean, both well.
He was 2 sacks from breaking Strahan's sack record this year.
And so I mean,
as a
defensive tackle, which is unreal. Now I mean, JT did it a couple years back. I mean,
right.
But it's still I mean, it's kind of bad, because I mean, you that team has a chance to be very dominant for years the way they're built, and to know that you don't have it on the back. I mean, that front end, that front 7 end is bad, and of course then you're aging on the back end as well. So,
and more likely than not, they're going to have to travel to New Orleans, and that makes it even that much harder, because they at one time they owned their own destiny, and they could have got top seed and got home field advantage through the entire playoffs. They slacked off, shit the bed a little bit, and more than likely they're going to end up in New Orleans, and if they get that far, I'd say that's the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much anybody that's going through the NFC, I think, is going to have a hard time going to the Saints and winning that game. Saints are so good this year. Drew Brees has been so on point at like 80 years old. and it's Walker out there. I mean, they're just a great team. I don't see anybody going into the Saints, even the Rams, and put up any competition against them.
Their defense has played out of their mind this year. I don't know where that came. I mean, they had to trade for Eli Apple from the Giants. The only thing that's been kind of suspect the last couple of weeks has been the offense. But if anybody's going to figure it out, it's going to be Sean Payton and Drew Brees. So I'm not worried about it. And they're playing in the Dome. I think it's pretty much going to be Saints.
And I also want to give props to my boy Kittle for breaking the tight end receiving record.
The yardage record, yeah.
So good on him. One of the bright spots for the Niners, which, looking forward as they get people healthy and back, and they get Garoppolo back and a couple other players, they may be a pretty decent team and somebody to look out for next year.
They've got definitely a great mix of things. Good. They've always had a fairly decent offensive line, even through the bad years. But they also with him and Garoppolo coming back hopefully, and then the front office. I mean, I think you got a young their head coach and.
Shanahan's really not that bad,
He's really, really good. You watch what's happened to Atlanta the last 2 years.
Yeah,
without him.
Yeah.
I mean, they shit the bed. I mean, and that's shitting and.
Was he not down there when Cousins was going off down there in Washington?
Yeah, he was at the beginning of
he's
Cousins.
About the same happened to Denver when he left Denver. They crapped out for a couple years right after that too.
He's a very talented coach, and I mean that's a young mind, and it's good to see.
They got the young Breida down there too, and he's a undrafted running back stud. So
they're gonna have another high pick this year. So
they will, which is great.
And Kyle's got his dad to lean back on. His dad was a pretty good coach. He got to Washington, and Snyder will ruin about anybody. And unfortunately, that's what happened. But he can go to his dad and get advice and figure some stuff out, and I'm sure he does.
Snyder can rule a pulled pork sandwich. I mean, how do you do that? However you do that, as a big offensive lineman guy, I mean, big man, you ruin a pulled pork sandwich, son. You've really done something that Snyder has ruined a many pulled pork sandwiches, I believe.
He ruins coaches. He ruins players. Open your pocketbook and shut your mouth. Is
what it should be. You're right.
all right, let's move on to the AFC. Pretty much every position in the AFC was open over last week, but it's all been settled. Let's start out with the Colts dominated a Mariota-less Titans to reach the playoffs with a 33-17 victory.
I'm proud that the Titans made it this far, but I'm not surprised they lost to the Colts. Defense of the Colts has been playing good. Luck's been playing good, but the Titans have just lost. They've been obliterated on defense the last couple of weeks with injuries. They've lost Arakpo. They've lost Casey. They've lost their number 2 cornerback. So, I mean, and their strong suit this year has been their defense for the most part. So when you lose 3 players like that, it's hard to keep it up. So, and plus Mariota didn't play, but that's usually pretty common for the most part. So
That's par for the course.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and anybody outside of Indianapolis, unless you're a Colts fan, if you picked the Colts probably being in the playoffs this year, I probably would have called you a liar to your face. Nobody expected it. They played way overachieved. Andrew Luck's been playing great. The linebacker kid, I can't remember his name, that led the league in tackles. They got snubbed from the Pro Bowl. I mean, he's going to be a dominant force years to come.
Allen?
Yeah, they're a super young team. The defense is young and good. I mean, they're going to be a force for a while to come.
Yeah, they're a scary team to even imagine playing right now. They're as hot as you can imagine. And, yeah, I'm not saying that they'll, as we talked earlier about, they're a team that's built the correct way. And that's something that everyone forgets about. Everyone wants to look at how flashy everything is and, oh, my God, look at Gurley go and all this. They forget about Zimmer. I mean, they forget about all these guys that make it go, the offensive line. And what they've done, and of course, they even didn't they fire Ryan Gregson this past year? They bring a new guy in.
Like their whole front office is
the whole front got demolished. And then you bring – and what they've done draft-wise, you think about what their offensive line is. I mean, we were just talking today. They have 4 guys drafted in the top 2 rounds of the offensive line in the draft in the last, 4 years or so? Costanza, the freak show at left guard. I mean, this guy's the Nelson kid. I mean, this kid is
the beast.
It's unbelievable. You got the other kid, the kid that played at the Alabama kid. I mean, they have built something that as a organization you just don't get, and it doesn't happen that way. And if I'm a team in the AFC, I don't want to play them. They're built the right way.
And they
they're
had to.
They're going to run the ball.
They had to because Luck was getting absolutely killed. And we all knew he was something special, and there's no way you ship Peyton out of town, even though we knew Peyton was on the downhill of his career. But Luck comes in there and was putting up great numbers, and then all of a sudden it was getting annihilated, just crushed. So they had to, and good on them because they've obviously done a fine job. He no longer is Luck getting smashed every other play. And I agree with you. This team doesn't seem to care. The home field advantage that I was talking about with L.A. and New Orleans, I don't think it matters where Indy goes. They're ready.
When you're built that way, bro, I'm going to tell you, when you're built on the front end, when you're built in your when your guys, you look at, and not to be compared to college teams and heck, even NFL teams. I mean, you think about the way that heck, you think about Washington, your favorite team, when they were dominant.
The Hogs.
The Hogs. You got to understand, they don't matter. When you're built that way, it doesn't matter where you go, because you know what? The big sapsuckers up front is coming, and you better hope and pray they don't continue to come. I mean, and that's where they're built like. And I tell you, I love watching them play. I mean, the way Luck, he throws the ball. I love he's a no-nonsense guy. He's going to discipline. I mean, he's not one of these guys that's, like your typical
troublemaker, diva.
The diva type quarterback, I guess. Being an offensive lineman, which, hey, I'm almost, we protect our quarterback whoever he is. I don't care if he's Tom Brady to
Lamar Jackson.
I mean, we do whatever we do. That's our quarterback. We're going to do what we can. But to have a guy like, a Luck guy that's blue collar, who's going to eat the same place. He's going to eat wings with you. He's going to drink a beer with you. He's going to do whatever it takes to make sure you're right with you. You'll do a lot of things for him. And I watched, their offensive line. I watched him very closely last night. Whatever he did, you can bet your bottom dollar there was an offensive lineman right by him to pick his butt up.
Right, and if you look back at the Colts teams years back when Manning was there and they were winning Super Bowls, their offensive line was built the same exact way. I mean, you had 3 or 4 Pro Bowlers on that line every single year.
Honestly, probably had as good a mind as Peyton, maybe even better. I don't know if I'd go that far, but Saturday he knew what the hell was going on, ins and outs, making calls, and you're right. I mean, having a quarterback of the as good as Luck is, and then having an O-line to go with it, it's dangerous.
It is, but I tell you, I love, of course, me as I can't have an offensive line guy to see that charge. I mean, you can't name another guy. I mean, T.Y. Hill. I mean, Mac
came out of the clear
on
blue.
A defensive guy back in the day. You can name guys defensively for the Colts. Back we were talking,
right. Freeney,
you can name and you can name players the Colts had. Nowadays, I mean, you got the man, and then now you can name offensive linemen.
Right.
I mean, that's crazy to say that, but I mean, to me, that's the way your team should be built.
They're impressive.
When you get that built like that, now you draft 2 those guys, and players want to come to that.
Yeah.
So, I love it.
All right, so let's take the Chargers. Right, a 12-win season to lock up the second wild card with the victory over the Broncos, 23-9.
You were talking a second ago about the Colts being a surprise, which without a doubt they were, but the Chargers in the AFC especially is the biggest surprise to me because, wow, I mean, they play in a crappy division, so that's not too big of a surprise, but, man, they've showed up and showed out without a doubt. We know Rivers is a solid guy. I've always put him in that Marino category, that he was going to have huge, awesome stats and year after year and never even sniffed a trophy. But, man, nobody in the AFC is wanting to take the driver's seat. It's apparent. It's not happened yet, so why not the Chargers? It wouldn't surprise me in the least if they made the right run and they end up at least in the Super Bowl, and then the NFC's pretty much a crap show, so whoever they went up against in the NFC, other than the Saints, I would say they have a pretty good shot at beating. So I'm shocked.
They're all back healthy now. I think Hunter Henry's coming back. They got Melvin Gordon back. Keenan Allen's been healthy pretty much all year. I think that's one of the big factors to Phillip Rivers playing well.
Gates is 157 years old and producing like nobody else.
He's big-bodied now too, which just makes it better. Like, he's rotund. He's got rotund a little bit in his age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So which makes it better.
He
You
looks
know,
best
the best thing I think was help Rivers too. Before, it's always had to be. As you talk about, I think that's something that helped revive. I think with Drew Brees is development of a run when they actually became and had a running game. And a lot of these guys take they think this whole high flying and you know what I mean. The
500 yards a game.
Yeah, and all this stuff works. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Saints and the Chargers, but they've won ball games because time of possession and you can run the football. I mean, you put your in great defense. I mean, the Chargers have a good defense. We can name like one guy. I can't personally. I mean, I'm sure there's many others, but their defense is really good.
Yeah, their defense is very good.
Last one I remember is Junior Seau. I don't.
Honestly, they're one of those teams that really and truly, as I've said before, I talk about being impressed by people. I mean, that's pretty impressive. They're good.
Well, yeah, and they had a lot of injuries over the last couple of years that really hampered that team. Wide receivers getting injured early. It makes it tough. They don't have really a great fan base in L.A., and then have a great
horrible fan base. It's ridiculous.
I used to live out in San Diego, and I used to go to the games there. It would literally be half and half, home Chargers fans and half whoever was playing. And if Green Bay and Brett Favre was down there, when it was like 80% Green Bay. It was like Green Bay another home game for Green Bay. It was pretty bad. Of course, nobody's from San Diego. Nobody's really from L.A., so they don't really gel to their teams like they normally do. The only team really down in that area is the Lakers, probably that gets any kind of fan base support down there. And the Rams have gotten some this year just because they got that high flying offense. But I mean, it's tough when you're playing a lot of games and you don't have that support behind you.
And to Bronson's point, real quick, I know we need to move on, but he talked about how their running game has showed up. Well, guess what that does for a quarterback like Rivers? That opens it up for him, and he can really throw to his big old tight end.
Right.
And whenever Allen's there, we know he likes to lean on Allen pretty heavy. But that running game is very important because it eats up the clock really well. But when they want to go deep, it opens it up, and he can go deep when you're not expecting it.
Quarterback can breathe then. Like offensive linemen don't really want to pass pro.
Well, I think it makes it. You can probably speak more to this than I can, but when you have a running game and your defensive isn't just putting their ears back and going towards the quarterback, it probably makes it easier on the line as well to protect them and the block.
100%. I mean, there's so many different types of sets you can come off an offensive lineman now the way they playing it and so. But when you're able to run set, off of a pass pro, so say we saw a quick to max, or whatever you want to call it. You're looking at just a different. It gives the defensive lineman a different way to look at things. So, here you've gone and you run them and run and run them. All of a sudden now you pass pro to setting them hard, and just changes the, and it gives a guy like Rivers is another guy we haven't even talked about. Rivers has been beat up.
Yeah.
You talking about everyone speaks about all these other guys, and Rivers always put up great numbers, but I mean he's been beat up, and you can only imagine if he had ever had a really true running game like he has now. I mean even Gordon. And before, I guess he had what's the
LT?
He had LT before, but they were always pretty old playoff teams in too.
Yeah, they were, but honestly, on as far as that goes, it's still even with LT there.
LT always got hurt right before or during the playoffs.
And then they didn't have the guy that's the threat this here or there. Their defense was terrible, and you had all these other. Now they actually have something. It kind of
a little more balance.
Yeah, and it's really like you think about of a player that was kind of like that. John Elway was about the same, and as far as career goes, too. I mean, John Elway was about the same way.
And we know what Elway did. He won it twice and see you bye.
He finally found a running game. They finally found something that worked, and he was able to, with that strong arm he has and intelligent. I mean, you're talking about it's
right.
The mix was there. Like he said, I mean, you could see the Chargers, and I could see him just as good as I could see anyone else. Playing for playing for that bowl game.
A team I like in this playoffs, the Texans are able to punch their ticket to the number 3 seed with a 20-3 win over the Jaguars.
And there's no secret over the shows we've done talking about the NFL. I've hopped on the Texans bandwagon, and I'm pulling for him, which I had Hopkins on my fantasy team. So, of course, I had a little bit of lean that way on him or whatever. They've got to keep Watson upright. And I know part of it's his fault. He's young. At least he's sticking in the pocket, trying to make a play for some of those sacks he takes. But the O-line guarding for him is not that good. But like I say, at least he's back there hanging in, trying to make a play, not Lamar Miller or Lamar Jackson taking off or so I feel like he's trying to do it the right way, but man, if he doesn't stay upright, there's no way they go far at all. But I am pulling for him. Their defense shows up sometimes, other times they're non-existent. But nobody in the AFC wants to take the driver's seat. It's not happened yet. We watched the games yesterday. Nobody still stepped up and said, "All right, here we are. We're your guy." So Texans have a good shot as any, but they've got to keep Watson on his feet.
Yeah, they are a weird team, as you said before. Like, you have the horses they have is what's on defense is what makes you a little perturbed when you talk about them. I mean, you think about the names they have on defense.
And they're finally healthy.
And they are, all of them together. And that's what I guess what's troublesome. And we watched them the other night. And, again, like, I'm not like you guys watch way more football than I probably do at all. But I just watch. I'm like, how and why is it that you can't protect number one? You have the ability, which is offense and going offensively, but defensively, when you have a J.T. Watt and a damn
Clowney,
Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, you're in a position. And the backers they have, the interior D line they have, the defense they run, the scheme in which they run it. Like a lot of it, honestly, sometimes it just feels like want to.
Right.
Like, get your excuse my language, get your damn nuts and hunk your damn nuts up about you, and make a stop. They get to great positions too. I mean, these guys have sacks. I mean, they're getting a great down position. But they allow, like the other night, they allowed drives to extend a lot further than they should, and it's like they're all looking for a sack. And I don't know if this about the way the game has changed, this individual type mess, where it doesn't. I need my stats. Like, Watt wants to have, all this thing, or Clowney's or whatever. But if they would ever they've had cats there for years to me. You know what I mean? Like,
and they finally got a true quarterback.
They
now.
do. They have a kid that is a absolute winner. Number
The
one.
winner, yeah. That's what
He's
I like about
a
him.
pure grab my balls about me.
Yeah.
I'll take every sack you give me. He's not a prima donna.
Nope.
He's one guy that will stand up for daggum everyone he's got there. Give him some dadgum. I mean, he's getting, and he don't need much.
Yeah.
Brother, he didn't have. I mean, he's won it. He's won at every level he's been at, from high school all the way up. He's won a national title against arguably one of the best college football teams ever played, and he beat them.
It's true.
I beat twice, and his numbers are the best has ever been against that team.
Yeah.
And you can't. You mean to tell me? And honestly, if he doesn't get hurt last year, right? He.
Yeah.
So it's aggravating to watch that defense just trolley about and like play lackadaisical football. Let me find a split tail. I mean, that's what it's like. It's like, let me lay down and be in a bar somewhere and be the woman in a bar.
Well, I think they can
situation.
get at the quarterback too, so I think that does help them a lot. Anytime you can, the best pass defense is putting the quarterback on the ground every time.
It truly is. And the thing about it is when you have that advantage, though, it's not like they're not. I guess that's why you get upset because they use Clowney in so many different ways.
Right.
So now you can use Clowney in any line because he's one of the best, honestly, athletes I've ever seen. I mean,
he's a freak athlete. Yeah.
Is he not? I mean, you watching him play. I watched him. He runs better than most. I mean, you could play him outside linebacker. You could put him in inside. You can put him at
he
three
could go
or
to
one.
strong safety in the right
pitch.
situation.
Right.
And it's phenomenal. And I don't understand why the world they have not written the ship on that. Like, you're Bill O'Brien. You're one of the best minds, offensive minds in all of football, probably.
Right.
I mean, he possibly probably is like
arguably. Yeah.
And it's to me, as a kid coach, you've been at it now for how many years he's been there. It's time to either bring a guy in that knows what he's doing defensively. And I don't know who their defense. I mean, I know Romeo Cornell was there for years. I don't know if he's still there now. But I mean, they've got to fix something because to have what they have, firepower up front, to not have a want. I think that's the biggest problem I have with is a want to
right. It's an effort thing, you think?
Yes, it's a big effort problem. Like Watt's another one of those guys. It's and he generally used to be, and I know he's gotten older, but hey, let's move him around and let's put him at a 3. Let's move him from sitting him at an end. Let's go into like they used to use.
Right.
So I don't know. It's aggravating to watch. It really is.
All right, so the disappointing Steelers, they were able to defeat the Bengals 13-16, and turn them into one of the biggest Brown fans over Sunday, but didn't work out well as the Browns did fall, and the Steelers are out of the playoffs for the first time in who knows how long.
I've beat that horse over the entire season, but especially since we started doing our podcast. I've beat the Steelers down. There's nothing else I can say about them. They got themselves into this situation, found themselves on their hands and knees rooting for the Browns. You got what you deserved.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
I agree with that. I mean, we pretty much beat it pretty hard this season.
Yeah, ain't no excuse. Too much talent on that team to not make the playoffs.
Even with Bale out, it didn't matter.
Yeah, they should have been in the AFC Championship game. That's at a minimum with all the talent on that field.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bell wasn't the issue of that team at all.
And the bad thing, I think the Pittsburgh defense was like 8th in total yards. So with
they
the
were
offense,
pretty much carrying their weight.
So I mean, there's no excuse for them not to make.
That lies on Ben Roethlisberger. That's what it does.
It was,
to me. I mean, and a lot of people won't say it, and obviously their head coach. I mean, if I'm one of the guys, Mike, and he's been there for a long time, and I'm not saying he's a really good football coach. I believe.
I like him.
But he shit the bed on that one. Like he really did. Of course, when you have the situation where he doesn't come back, right? So the kid doesn't come back, and it's whatever it is. You knew he wasn't coming back. You knew as a head coach. I could have told you, and I haven't talked to you. I mean, been this podcast at all. I could have told you before the season started that guy wasn't coming back. He just finally decided, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm all running back. I've been averaging 300 and 400 yards, 400 yard touch, 300 yards, but touches a year.
Mm-hmm.
Something's got to give.
Right.
Like eventually, you have to look at it from a player standpoint.
Yep,
I respect him as a player. Like saying, okay, let me sit down for a second. You know what I mean? But then he could have proactively gone into his locker room after that and fixed that before that ever came out.
But Connor showed up and
year.
did exactly what Bell would have been doing. So they don't have an excuse.
He don't do what Bell would have done.
But, I mean, he was producing. He was scoring.
But again, you're going to look at nowadays the game as backs go, it's a 2-back game. Connor would have made Bell that much better. They would have been that much better.
They should have washed their damn hands of him early.
Should have got the pot
and just went on about their business. And if they're using that as an excuse, really piss on them because I like the Steelers. I like Tomlin. But if they use the Bell as an excuse, I'm going to absolutely explode because you knew it was happening. You got 5-6 weeks into the season. Okay, boom, he's done. Let's go about our business, and they still sucked.
I don't know how that team can stay under the caps and never be in money issues and have that much talent on it every year.
I've never heard of them ever being in the caps ever. Like they're close to it, or it's phenomenal. Whatever they've done, however they've managed.
Their management is great. Their team this year was just. And they're underperformed.
Well, that's sick. Then if their management that great, you can sign a guy like him. And you need it's a guy you sign. You say, you know what? All right, let's just go and do it and get it done with. Or you just say, you know what? As a team, we're going
right,
and we're going to sit with James Conner. And that way, there's never a doubt at all with those. And there I go back to the offensive line. I mean, they're the ones that called him out.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're the ones who are like, hey, and they should. Those are the guys that run your team. Everyone wants to think the quarterback, and all that, but then the offensive line, defensive line, they run your team. And without those guys back, so then when you lose those guys, you're done. Like I think it's sad that because if you have a guy that's as talented as he is, I mean,
Right.
that's not going to hurt him in the long run. I think he gained another year of his life, and
It's going to cost him some money.
I believe you're right on that one.
And real quick, I know we need to move on, but real quick, if there's a few teams in the league where I absolutely believe fan pressure will cause you to do something, Pittsburgh's one of them. Pittsburgh's fans their voice will be heard, and if they turn their back on Tomlin, then he's gone. But I still think he has support from the fans, so I think Tomlin's still there next year. But I swear, like them, Green Bay, obviously New York, it doesn't matter because they suck year in, year out. But there's a couple of teams, and Pittsburgh's one of them, and I still think he has the fans behind him. So I think Tomlin's okay, but they better figure it out next year.
Yeah, I think if Tomlin does get gone, I think you're going to have a line of coaches outside Pittsburgh trying to get in that door.
Especially with the players that are still going to be there.
Yeah.
Oh. And welcome back. Looks like we lost Jarris there for a little while. That's okay. We got Bronson filling in for him. We talked a little bit about the Steelers and their win. So let's talk a little bit about the game that mattered to them most. The Baker Mayfield did set the single-season touchdown record for a rookie, breaking Peyton Manning's record. But they did still fall short to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, which move on to the playoffs.
Just could never get a lead on them to make them throw. You got to make the Ravens throw. They just beat you and beat you and beat you. I think that's the key. Baker Mayfield gave it all he had, but he just didn't have enough.
You're right about that. They, man, it's kind of interesting to know that I think it's been what I would consider a heck of a job by the Ravens coaching staff to have developed or designed that style of play for a kid that, obviously isn't ready to throw it in the NFL yet. And they challenge you in so many ways. It's kind of like a triple option would be in college, but they give you a different look. I mean, there's two running backs running straight downhill. Like they're blocking it like you would an ISO or a midline or veer type play where everything's downhill. And then the wrinkle is Lamar Jackson. And you know what I'm saying? So you stop one and then all of a sudden he starts to pull it. It's pretty interesting stuff to be in the professional football to see this happen.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see. I think the closest thing we saw to it was probably Tebow in Denver, and that didn't work out. But I think Lamar Jackson's just a little bit better of an athlete than Tebow.
Yes, way better athlete.
Well, Cam Newton does run that off tackle option with the quarterback. But he's a little bit different type of runner. Cam Newton is. Cam Newton's still fast, but he's more of a beast to take down, more of a heavy type hitter type running back versus Lamar Jackson, which is super electric fast and arguably probably one of the best athletes on the field when he's out there.
Lord have mercy. We know that. That's a fact. But I don't know, man. It's kind of it's the same, I guess, concept when you're talking about like the off tackle stuff with Cam, but it's a little different. I think the backs hit it differently. I mean, Cam runs more of a zone read type stuff.
Yeah.
What they're doing there is more of a option style. It's like the single wing. It's almost kind of like what Tebow ran in college in a way. I mean, so you have more downhill type runner, and then the quarterback just kind of.
Well, it's what Louisville
and they
ran
block it toward
in
too.
college too.
And it really is. They I think give credit where credit's due for Baltimore Ravens offensive staff, John Harbaugh and that staff to. And the whole time having a quarterback that has won a Super Bowl. I mean, Joe Flacco's he's not had some great years. I mean, you know what I mean? Like he said he's been, he's never really made up, or been, what would you say?
The superstar.
He's like the Brad Johnson of the generation prior to that, where he had great defense that he just did enough, didn't turn the ball over, managed the game, and got a ring.
And you had that guy there. And then to have designed or came up with this style for this kid, I think it just goes to a
right. I think it says a lot to the whole offensive line, the backs, the receivers to buy into that system as well, because they put that in. It wasn't in the off season. They put that in a week.
Yes, they did, and it was pretty amazing. And to go toward the other side, I really believe the Browns is a hire. And we talked about this earlier. I think the Browns if you hire the right guy there, and of course, we spoke about Greg Williams, and I think Greg Williams is a great coach. Obviously, he's done very well everywhere he's went defensively. He's done great this year. They won more ball games when he took over than they have in however many years now. 4, 5, 6 years, probably more than that.
Right.
But that's, to me, a great job as a coach, looking at what they have, because Baker Mayfield is a winner.
All right, yeah, I totally agree. I think the Browns are probably a player or two off. If they can get somebody that can pressure the quarterback, maybe another dynamic receiver, they're going to be very tough to deal with in the future.
I totally agree. They've got the mix. I mean, everywhere you look at it. So you look at it, you have Mayfield, who's obviously a winner. I think he's a winner. But you have the two-back system when you have Nick Chubb and you have Duke Johnson, which people forgot about.
Right.
So now you have that combination. I think they, with the tight end as well.
Right.
That tight end, yes, and Njoku is a beast. And from Miami, of course, that's your team, my wife's team as well. And then I think you're right. I think get another guy to complement Landry, and then you bring in another pass rusher to go along with Myles Garrett. Now we're talking a team, because I think the back end's great.
Yeah, they're going to be. Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get the quarterback, you got a chance to win.
Yeah, and then when they have the heck of, their GM's ridiculous. He's won everywhere he's went. He's been, you know what I mean. I was impressed with him. I watched Hard Knocks, and I fell in love with halfway fell in love with the whole team, the way the team was built. Their offensive line guys,
well, they were
like characters.
Oh, yeah. And they were like 6-2 at the end of the season.
Yeah,
which
they
is,
were.
I mean, they're going to be scaresome teams. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the playoffs next year at all.
Me either.
All right, so moving along, the Patriots easily handled the Jets to lock up the number 2 seed. I don't think any surprises there.
Who hasn't?
Nah, it's just too much talent for the Patriots against a bad Jets team. I don't think anybody saw anything different coming.
I'm talking about a quarterback that throws to the team a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah, he does. And you hate for a young quarterback. Darnold's going to be good, I think.
He showed flashes that first game he played, and I was like, "Good Lord, that looks like a quarterback there."
But everyone forgets about the many games he was horrible at USC, and when they should have been great, it wasn't great, and it's hard. This is a different speed, a different game. It is what it is on that one. I don't think anyone's surprised about what happened there.
Well, he has all the tools to be an amazing quarterback. I think a lot of the quarterback is played in your head, and I think if he can get that down, he'll be fine. It's just getting that past that point.
Totally agree.
All right, so the Chiefs finally decide they wanted to lock up the number 1 seed and do so by easily defeating John Gruden and the Raiders 35-3.
Yeah, it's a bad Raiders team. I think they kind of blew their wad last week, being the last game in Oakland, maybe. The Chiefs got Tyreek Hill back, totally healthy. I'm not sure if Spencer Ware played or not, but he's a big help. They lost Kareem Hunt, but I don't think the Chiefs are going to miss a beat with that. I think you throw pretty much any back in that system, and they're going to do well. Kind of like with the Steelers or the Rams.
I think offensively the Chiefs are going to be fine. I don't think there's any doubt about the Chiefs offensively. I think their problem lies on the other side of the ball. It's going to be their issue. And if they're going to go forward and win this thing, they're going to have to be able to stop somebody. And I don't think they proved that they can do that this year.
They haven't stopped anyone.
No,
they stopped the Oakland Raiders. I guess this past week.
Yeah,
but my goodness, Gruden is whatever he's done, and many people say it's ignorant or whatever they may look at, but he obviously sees something that many doesn't. And I think he's been playing to. I think he's been that transition guy for them to go to Las Vegas, and he's one of the few coaches that actually can do that and be liked at the same time.
Right.
Maybe they can keep that fan base, and I think that's a lot of the things. And he, you don't. I guess you got a guy like Khalil Mack, and you let him go. Something's going on. You know what I mean? Something big is going on that he sees that we don't, or they've planned that we don't see. And I think everyone speculates and can speculate. They're looking at toward the Oakland fan, and I hate it for them as well. But I mean, I don't think. I mean, if anyone thought this game was going to be different,
I mean, look at the transition that Khalil Mack made to the Browns. I mean, not the Browns, but the Bears.
Well,
they were good before, but their defense has been top notch now this year.
He's phenomenal. I mean, he really is. He's a game changing guy. They knew he was going to be a game changing guy. That's why they drafted him as high as they did. And then but I think that's what's so strange about that letting him go. I think maybe you free up a lot of cap space and you do a lot of different things when you're going to a brand new city and you want to get certain guys to play for you in that city.
They also said Jimmy Johnson was crazy when he traded away Herschel Walker too. So
they dang sure did.
Yeah.
So he's stockpiling picks right now. He may be doing the same.
You got
thing.
a lot more picks for Herschel Walker than they did for Khalil Mack, though.
Yeah, but
Lord, yeah.
But I understand what you're saying. No, it does make sense though. But I never seen Gruden actually build a team though, so it'd be interesting to see. He's always came into teams that were pretty good.
He didn't know. I mean, you take this back. I mean, you look at the first time he was with Oakland. He built that.
Well, true, he did build. I mean, he got Bronson Gannon in. He brought a lot of guys in that.
Romanowski brought in there. He brought in a lot of veteran guys, and he's a big-time veteran guy.
Right.
One thing is about him, like I think you free up that cap space to bring in I mean, how attractive would that be for a guy that, I mean, you got a young quarterback, Derek Carr, who can play. Derek Carr can play. We obviously have seen that he can play.
He's not.
He's proven
the
it.
worst.
He's not. I don't whether or not he matches toward what he wants there. But I mean, you think about that. Like that's a lot of money for a guy who likes veterans.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of veterans will be free.
And I wonder if that's why he let Khalil Mack go because he didn't like that mentality of that younger player.
I think and I think he just knew what money he's going to have to spend to keep him.
Right.
I mean, now you let a guy like that go. Yeah, you're not going to get him back ever because Khalil Mack is a once in a lifetime player.
Right.
I think he really is. I think he's a J.T. Watt. I think he's a Jadeveon Clowney type guy. But at the same time, how many guys can you get from him? I mean, name a guy that New England has not let go.
Yeah, true. I mean,
name a transitional. I mean, Tom Brady. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much they transfer. Edelman's been there for a while now, I guess. Yeah. But I mean,
Edelman wasn't worth the poot. Really, he played a small part. I mean, I don't think he's been as big as part as he generally has been.
Yeah, I mean, Abdullah left and went to Miami and didn't do anything. So
the big defensive tackle, they let him go. What was his name?
Yeah.
He went.
Richard Seymour was there. Went to the Raiders.
The guy from the Miami.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Wilford.
Yeah.
Vince Wilfork.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot been done, but he let some go. I mean, so I think you look at that mentality. I mean, you draft if you draft well and you free agent well, you're going to be good.
Yeah, very true.
And he did that at Oakland, and he literally was a play away on a bad call that puts him in the Super Bowl. Then
right, and then he goes into Tampa and does enough on offense to win that. Win it there. So yeah, absolutely. All right. So with that being said, it does kind of lay out the playoffs for us. In the NFC, you have the number 6 Eagles will be going to Chicago to face the number 3 Bears. You guys have any picks for that game?
I think the Eagles are going to pull this out. I like the Bears defense, but I think Foles is the it factor for this. He can get out there and wing it.
You're correct on that. I think he just understands that offense a little bit. I mean, I think he fits it all. As I said earlier, I think he just fits it a little
better.
Winston's a big pocket guy.
Right.
He's not sneaky. He's a better athlete, obviously, than Foles. I mean, honestly, he is. I mean, I just think, I think him coming back a little early, I really believe, I think, and the Eagles' defense is, but Jim, I mean, you're talking about, they're tough. I mean, that defense has played well all year, no matter what you think about it, and it's just been the offenses that kind of struggled, and then when you get behind, you've been on the field long enough, I mean, the defense is going to fall and falter. So I think I'd take the Eagles on that 100% of the way.
I mean, it may be a 3-0 game by the time it's said and done.
It could be.
I like the Browns in this game. It's going to be in Chicago.
The Bears.
I mean the Bears. Sorry, I know I say the Browns, but
I'm a Bears guy. I've been a Bears fan. I want you want to, but at the same time, I mean, I got a kid that I coached, Nigel Bradham, in the Eagles, and I don't know, just that when you got a team coming hot,
I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles win the game. I just think it's hard to go somewhere in the playoffs and win.
Yeah,
consistently.
I mean, the Eagles did it last year, didn't they?
They sure did.
Kind of the same teams. I don't think they're scared of it. And they got a guy, Nick Foles, that obviously the team believes in, and they're hot
I'd
as.
say there's a little chip on their shoulder too, trying to get back there.
I agree.
I wouldn't be surprised either way, but we shall see next week, or then end of this week. The number 5 Seahawks travel to Jerry World to face the Cowboys.
It's tough. You got two pretty good defense. I think the Cowboys been playing pretty good ball here lately. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I know the Seahawks got a lot of experience in the playoffs, but I think the Cowboys made a lot of good moves during the season. They got they got some young talent on defense, and they can run the ball. Seahawks can run the ball as well, but I think a lot of it depends on Dak Prescott and how he plays. But I like the Cowboys.
I'll probably tell you, I would go with Seattle. I think, Gary, there again, you're talking about a team that's just been on the up. I mean, and I'm not taking – I think the Cowboys has been as well. I just think, I don't know. And hopefully I'm wrong. Neither one of these teams would be ones that I prefer either way you look at it. But, I think I would take the Seattle over just Russell Wilson's experience alone and his ability to extend plays the right way.
Right. Well, my problem with the Seahawks is that they don't play well on the road.
You're right about that. That is something I didn't even take into account to. They do not.
I think they won like 2, maybe 3 games this year on the road. And they got if they were at home, I would pick in the Seahawks all day and twice on Sunday. But I mean, the Cowboys haven't been in the playoffs in a while. I mean, I guess they won a couple years ago when they were like 12 and whatever. But Cowboys fans are going to show up. It's going to be loud.
Yeah,
it's going to be in Jerry World.
I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a really good game.
I think the Cowboys do pull out a close, great defensive game.
Yeah, I can see either way on that one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and would I be shocked if the Seahawks won? Absolutely not.
I think that Van Der Esch kid that the Cowboys got is up for defensive rookie of the year is probably going to be the it factor because that boy can play.
He can play. You aren't lying about that.
Absolutely. So let's take a look. And so the Rams and Saints, of course, are going to have byes this week, so they won't face anybody. We'll find out who they play next week. All right. So going to the AFC, it looks like we're going to have the number 6 seed Colts going to Houston to face the number 3 seeded Texans.
I think the Colts are going to be able to. I don't think they're going to be able to get pressure on Andrew Luck, and I think they're going to be able to run the ball as well. So it's going to be they'll be playing from behind all day. That's not very good for Houston. That's not their strength.
I think it plays back. Going on adding on to what you're saying. I believe the Colts win, and honestly, really, which was forgotten with them is their defense is really good. They take away the ball well, and they really do. And they and then being able to control the ball off. What they did the other night. You're talking about 6, 7, 8 minute drives from being able to extend drives from the running game, and then with Luck being they're a juggernaut. I mean, I think with anyone they play against. I mean, so I'll take the Colts there all day.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts win. I'd like the Texans just because I think the Colts are probably a year away. They got a very young team. I think another year of experience will help that team. They're going to be playing in Texas, in Houston. I think I wouldn't be shocked if the Colts win this game. I don't think anybody is looking forward to playing the Colts in the playoffs this year at all.
I think all the Colts really have to do is shut down DeAndre Hopkins, and they're going to win that game pretty handily.
They've got guys, cornerbacks and speed. Their defense's predecessors, their speed, they're fast.
Right.
I think the way you're going to have to be able to run it and run it really well.
Reminds me a lot of the old Tony Dungy days when he was there.
Yeah, they really have. And it does, and you're correct in saying that. I mean, it really does. They're fast defensively, and I think you're going to have to run it directly at them. I mean, if they catch I think the worst pill for them would be, a Ravens team this early. If they call it a Ravens team early, but if they get in and as hot as they're going and they catch, I think Houston have problems. And then you go into from them, it's be pretty good.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. So let's move on to the 12-win number 5 seed Chargers going to Baltimore to face Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
I think the Chargers are going to take old Baltimore. I think if anybody is going to be able to put up points against that Ravens defense and get them in a hole to make Lamar Jackson throw the ball, it's going to be Phillip. I think there's only two. There's only a couple guys that can do it. It's Phillip Rivers, Andrew Luck, and Drew Brees. That's about the only three quarterbacks I think they have the offense to do it.
I agree with you there. I think the Chargers do. I think what the sneaky, again, what I mentioned earlier about their defense, I think the Chargers' defense is better than what we think. They beat who they just beat a couple weeks ago. We were talking about the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs. Yeah,
They beat the Chiefs and they held the Chiefs. They and you're talking about that's a Chiefs team that can do it both ways.
Yeah,
and they didn't miss a skip 1 ounce of a beat when
on
they
the
lose
road.
Kareem Hunt.
Right.
And you're talking about and that's a great.
The Chargers.
You said that's a great something.
Oh yeah, I was talking about their defense. I think that's something that I think we forget about how well their defense.
Yeah.
Their defense is really good, and they playing just beating the Chiefs. You're talking about with Kareem Hunt and everyone
Right.
else they have. I mean, and their defense. I think that's the one team that can stop them because they're not. They would be a fun team to play. I mean, they're going to have to run the ball as well. I think it's another thing too. I think they're going to have to run it real well as well. I don't think you want to get into a situation where you're giving Baltimore more chances.
Right. No, and Baltimore has a good defense as well. They're
They
not
do.
the same as not the same as the old Ray Lewis, Ed Reed days, but they are still really good on
Very
defense.
good. Yes, very good.
They play a good field position game, and that's what they've been winning the last couple of games. If you watch them play, I watched the last week's game. It's all been field position. I mean, they're not afraid. They got great kickers, punters, and kickers. I mean, Tucker's great. If you need somebody to win a game, he can kick it from probably 80 yards if you let him line it up and do it.
They've been built well. They're built well. They're very well coached, obviously, and you win those. You win three phases of the game, and it's just crazy. So you win defense, offense, especially you win all three of those things. And I think more offense running game. I think especially this time of year, it's getting cold. We're out here right now. We're in doggone East Tennessee, but it's starting to rain. It's getting chilly. We can only imagine what it's going to be like, in those other atmospheres. I mean, and of course, I think are they coming? Chargers, they're going to San Diego, which is
They're going to Baltimore.
Baltimore, they're going to Baltimore, correct?
Yes.
That's not where that's going to be a heck of a game.
I think
Either way
it'll be
you
a
look
fun
at
game.
it, I think that'll be a really good game to watch. Yeah.
I think it's going to be a fun game to watch, absolutely. And also, just to give a recap on the rest of the AFC, the Patriots did lock up the number 2 seed and have a bye, as well as the Chiefs will have a bye.
Wow.
Which I don't think either one of those teams really scared me in the AFC either.
I'm not either one of them. I'm not impressed. I think the teams we talked about before, I think all the teams we talked about could beat them.
I totally agree with that. I mean,
I think the Chargers could, or if Ravens, either one we talk. I mean, I think that neither one of them want to see them teams. I don't think the way they're built, the way both teams are built, they're built with running game, and now. I mean, I think they're not. Brady's just not scary anymore. I mean, and it's never been really Brady. I mean, everyone wants to mention Brady. Brady's awesome.
right, no.
But there's been those other pieces that people forget about. Things like that. They've always had a great running game. They've always had a great, like their passing game has always been, I'm going to get first downs and we're going to extend drives and we're going to do. And the defense has always been a hold, and they're not doing those things anymore.
Well, and the thing about the Patriots that was always so scary is like they would have Brady throw and run the ball like 4 times one game. The next game they'd run the ball 30 times, and the back would have 220 yards.
They always they took advantage of anything whatever your defense gave them.
Yep.
Or allowed, they took advantage of that. Now I think they've gotten to a point now where they can't do the same things.
I think Father Time's caught up to Brady a little bit. He's barely been a top 15 quarterback this year. I think it's only going to go downhill more.
It is, and that as Cowherd said, I mean, probably a couple years ago, it's going to happen. I mean, him, Max, I mean, all these other guys. I mean, it happens to, you can only no longer. I mean, you're taking enough hits. I mean, and the game just slows down. Your body, your mind, everything slows down, and I think we're starting to see that.
We saw it from all the great. I mean, Manning. I mean, he was a shell of his former self, and
he totally dropped
in
out.
Denver
fell off the doggone planet.
His brother Manning now in New York is not dropped as far, but still has not playing as well. I mean, all the greats have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Marino, Brett Favre, Montana, all have in their career kind of dropped off.
Yeah.
So it's that time. And is he still a good quarterback? Yeah. Is he probably going to start for 75% of the teams out there? I would say probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think anybody's scared of the Patriots this year. I don't think anybody's scared of the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs have always been a September, October, November team, and they always every teams have always historically dropped it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Again, they shouldn't have. And I don't know if you can get it fixed, and I don't think that defense is good enough to do anything. I think that they,
No, I think they're
their defense is poor. I don't know why. They've got a lot of players there too. That's
about the biggest heavy hitter they got is Justin Houston, and Eric Berry can't stay on the field.
Yeah, Eric Berry's getting old. I mean, and heck, my God, I mean, who blames him? I mean, that guy's
had cancer and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the epitome of what a football player is, but I mean, Father Time doesn't play.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they got decent linemen. They got some big guys, at defensive end. They got Alan Bailey out there, and is a beast of a man. And they just don't seem to play like it for some reason. I don't understand.
Houston's old.
It's all mindset. I think a lot of this, like we're talking about Houston the same exact way we're talking about. I think Kansas City reminds me a lot of them. Like the way they play, the offensive, they could be really great. And Kansas offense obviously is great.
Right.
I mean, Andrew's done an ungodly job, and I really believe he has. I mean, I think the kid they have there is he's a gunslinger. Like we talked earlier, the Brett Favre's the last time he's had a guy that could actually throw it from every angle you want to throw it from as a quarterback. But at the same time, when you have that, there's not a compliment. I mean, so there's got to be a compliment, and the great ones have great compliments. I mean,
right.
And every team we mentioned before these other two teams, what we mentioned right after their defense.
Their defense, right.
And so, I mean, I think it's
well, you look at Montana back in those days. He had great offenses, but those defenses were ridiculously good too. And the Cowboys back in the 80s and 90s, back when Jimmy Johnson was there. I mean, they had Aikman and Everett and Irvin and all those guys, but their defense was lights out just as well.
Yes, they were. They were.
And so still, even to this day, you got to be able to stop somebody to win the championship. I don't care how good your offense is; it doesn't work without unless you're able to get the ball.
There's three phases, and that's when the great teams have it. I mean, they're the teams that win Super Bowls. You had to win all three phases of the game: offense, defense, special teams, and you can't do. You have one or the other or two of the other. You're not going to win it all. I think, and those other teams, like you said, we talk about New England. You think about Brady, and you talk about Kansas City. You think about the quarterback and what they could do. Then
Mahomes,
and you can mention 1-2 players on the other side of the ball. When we talk about the immediately thing, we talk about the other teams or defense right after that.
Yeah.
They're built primarily because of their defense. I mean, San Diego's defense. I mean, Ravens' defense. I mean, they all go hand in hand. So,
I think you can win. You can have just enough offense to win and have a great defense and still win. And I think that's been proven by the Tampa Bay back in the day, Baltimore all those years when they won. But having
New England,
having a great offense doesn't always, in a poor defense, doesn't always translate to being able to win in January.
No, you're correct. I mean, we've only seen a couple that's actually done that. I mean, I think, and not really, you can't say they're poor, the teams that won, but they weren't, better than that. You have the St. Louis Rams, Warner, the first year. They won it. They had a great, and then their defense was decent. Of course, then you take the next year that they had a great offense, and the other team was built defensively, and they won. So anyways, I appreciate you guys for inviting me on.
I appreciate having you out here. We appreciate having you on. Yeah, it was good. It was good times having you out here. We appreciate you coming on. We do have our new feed, got our Facebook page going up. Do you have the link to that by chance?
No, that's just Front Porch Sports Entertainment. I don't got the link. But.
All right. Excellent.
It's a group. I don't know.
You can also follow us on Twitter at Front Porch ENTE1. That's Front Porch ENTE1. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow us there. Ask us questions on either the Facebook or Twitter. We'll be more than happy to answer them on the air and give you some kind of response. If you have a comment, please feel free to share it with us. If you have a concern, comment. Be free to share it with your friends. If you hate us, share it with your friends anyway. Tell them how sorry we are and have them listen to us anyway, and we appreciate it. We appreciate all your listeners. And is there anything else, Fee?
Thanks for Bronson coming. I appreciate it. It's good seeing you, buddy.
Well, it was great seeing you guys, and I appreciate you again. I appreciate you and Jerrison. Honestly, my last comment is y'all have a happy New Year.
You too. Absolutely.
We are. This is the New Year's Eve, and
Yeah, we
Let's
probably
have
won't
a New
get it
Year.
out before you guys today, but
No.
Yeah.
That ain't happening.
No.
but we'll get it out to you guys here shortly. We do appreciate you guys listening. A happy New Year, and hope you all your new dreams come through for the new year. And with that, Fee, hit the music.